guess who just watched the Five Nights at Freddy's movie? I did. It took me a bit too long to watch this movie, and so I had to beg people not to give me spoilers for a week. And I had to watch the movie a little bit later than others because it was right in the middle of my midterms. I took my boyfriend and his little brother with me because the thing is, you can't really forget that this is really supposed to be a horror movie, and I don't watch horror movies. I'm very easily spooked. I'm not a movie critic. I don't know how movies are supposed to go. I'm just a really big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. So if you came for like a real review of the movie, this probably isn't the right place to be. I'll be very biased because I love everything and anything. I'm here to share the point of view of an absolute super fan. So if you don't want to hear a nerd talk about Five Nights at Freddy's for the next couple minutes, it's best you click off this video now. I think a really good place to start from this movie is the opening. The movie opens with this previous security guard running from an animatronic, and just seeing this was really exciting because it was like seeing years of video game obsession get transferred onto a big screen. Just on like a side note, I watched MatPat on Game Theory's video on the production, and when he said that Markiplier was supposed to play the previous security guard, don't get me wrong, I'm really excited for Iron Lung, but a part of me cried a little. And as I said, the opening with the kids' choir and the 8-bit animation, I was so excited just sitting there like my childhood was coming together. It was really exciting. So the movie begins. I think really early on in the movie, they drop one of the biggest references, or at least to me, one of the biggest references to the fan base of Five Nights at Freddy's, and more specifically, the theory side of the fan base. There's a conversation they have about the dream theory, or this dream theory, and it was at this moment where I started hitting my boyfriend's shoulder because he had to know that this was a really big deal. Really made me think, like, that's a really big reference. I wonder what other references they have. And those references did not disappoint. I think the references that were added into this movie was such a good thing for the fans because, yes, maybe this entire movie was a lot of fan service for the mega fans who would like pick apart the movie, but I just think that's like really thoughtful. Off the top of my head, a few references that I remember vividly was Dream Theory. There was also Sparky the dog, and I know on TikTok they were talking about how Shadow Freddy was there. It felt like a big reunion at the Thanksgiving table, except the Thanksgiving table is at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and there's a corpse in an animatronic. And I think another, I don't know if this is like an Easter egg, but I just thought it was really cool how when they would pan to the animatronics, it really looked deliberate. So I remember there was at one point where it panned to Chica, and it looked almost exactly like how Chica looked like in the FNAF 2 trailer. I think the references to the spring locks, kind of explaining what they are, is great for people who came not knowing what FNAF was all about, but also a great reference for fans who would obviously know what spring locks are. I just thought that that was great for the fans too. There was also another part of the movie. It kind of made my mind stop, melt a little even. It was the waiter at the restaurant. What about his face? Almost like it shouldn't be moving. Matt Pat was in the movie. Matt Pat was in the movie. Okay, Matt Pat was in the movie. I mean, I knew that. Matt Pat posted a video which said I was in the FNAF movie. And I didn't even get to see the FNAF movie yet. So he basically spoiled the FNAF movie for me. So I knew Matt Pat was gonna be there. I just didn't know when he would come and attack. And he did. I think the animatronics were a really big highlight for me because I think a lot of people were wondering what the animatronics were going to look like. I also really liked the emotion that they put behind the animatronics. It really reminded us that like those animatronics are kids. They're kids. They're kids. They're dead kids. They're kids though. They're kids. And I know a lot of people were really worried about the animatronics working together with the main character Mike and his little sister Abby. I know a lot of people were really worried about that. They thought it was going to be a we are FNAF. We must fight Springtrap together as FNAF. And honestly, I was too, but I like what they did with it. It really reminded the people watching that like those animatronics are kids. I also really like how the animatronics have some humor in them, at least. I know there's this part trending on TikTok where it's like Bonnie trying to tell Freddy that Mike is inside the pizzeria and he's playing his guitar and he's trying to point out Mike to Freddy, and then Freddy is just like and the detail that they put in the animatronic, like how Bonnie is really aggressive because like he's the only one who attacks on the first night, and Freddy often lurks. He never does what the other animatronics do. He just kind of stands there until it's time to attack. I think the details were really good. I also really like the idea people put out that the animatronics used the song Talking in Your Sleep by the Romantics about how they communicate with him in his sleep. But it's also really funny because I'm just imagining these killer animatronics only being able to communicate through 80s music. But, another one bites the dust. But, but, another one bites the dust. That's just a little funny. I think the ending, a lot of people have criticism for it because if you didn't watch the movie, which this video has a lot of spoilers, so I don't know why you're still watching. At the end of the movie, William Afton comes out. He is Springtrap, and he will Springtrap the place. I guess a lot of people have different criticisms because of how it ends, how some things feel a little bit forced. When William Afton does get spring locked, gets spring trapped, gets spring lock trapped. When he gets spring lock trapped, I feel like that's a scene that a lot of people have been wanting to see ever since Five Nights at Freddy's 3, because this is the William Afton having to face against the children's lives that he ruined. And so I think, in a way, I really like that ending. A lot of people have said when William Afton says, I always come back, it sounds so forced, it sounds so rushed, it's so bad. That was a reference for people like you big fans. That was for you. So eat your food, be grateful, and say thank you, Papa. I'm sorry, that was weird. And of course, who could forget when the screen cut to black? They cut to one of the best end credit songs I could have ever asked for. A sequel is something that I'm kind of expecting now because of how successful the movie was. But I'm kind of worried because from what I know, Scott Cawthon won't be working with them anymore on this. So I think there's a lot of ways a sequel could go. I think there's a lot of speculation for a sequel because of how the movie went. You had a lot of open endings at the very end. You had Vanessa in a coma. You had the very end of the credits where you heard Come Find Me and the marionette song. And there was also like the aunt's death, which like it kind of happened out of nowhere, I think. Or maybe something did happen. I was kind of hiding behind a jacket. Was that the bite of 87? But it's things like these where I think there will be a sequel to this or a prequel. I'll get to that later. I think there's a lot of reasons to speculate why there will be a sequel because they want to fill out these loose ends, because they want to make more money, or because they want to follow the games, which is why I'm kind of theorizing here, but also not theorizing because a lot of people have also said this. A lot of people think that the next movie will be Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which would be a prequel to Five Nights at Freddy's 1, mimicking the games because Five Nights at Freddy's 1 was the first game that came out, then Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out, but it was a prequel to Five Nights at Freddy's 1, which we all know at this point, right? Right? I hope Markiplier is a part of it. I feel like it would make sense for this to happen. They could talk about the puppet. They could talk about the beginning of William Afton. They could talk about how he murdered the kids because the movie couldn't get more gruesome enough. I'd really hate for the sequel of this to be a bad movie because I just love the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise a lot if it wasn't obvious enough. And to see it end on a bad note would really hurt. I'd much rather they step away from FNAF now while it's good and while everyone loves it than for them to make another movie, have people call it a meaningless cash grab, and then leave. This franchise means so much to so many people. You wouldn't want to do that, right? To end this video off, I know there's a lot of mixed opinions about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, because there will always be mixed opinions. There will never be something that is all loved or I mean, some things can be all disliked. Everything has a part of it that people don't like. But I'm just really happy that a lot of fans do like the movie. And I also really like the movie as a really big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. Seeing the love that this franchise gets, as old and as convoluted as it's become, as loved or as hated as it's been, I think it's a really great way to celebrate such a big part of internet culture. It's actually really sad to see, but As I was scrolling on TikTok, I came across the Iron Lung trailer, which is a movie that Markiplier is making. He's directing it and he is starring in it. And seeing the people who say Markiplier traded the FNAF movie for this, I just thought it was really sad because he did want to be a part of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And seeing the way people put down his work just because he wasn't part of this giant movie, I don't like seeing that on the internet. So if there is a second Five Nights at Freddy's movie, I'd love Markiplier to be in it because he's just a great YouTuber in general and he's a cool person. I'd love to meet him one day. Hi, Markiplier. So thank you for watching this video of me just talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I know it's been a while since the movie's been out. Now make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification button if you can. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie because I really want to see what other people think about it. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you again. Bye.